Our assembly started with the head mount front piece located at the origin. We then added the head joint and mated the faces coincident and the holes concentric to each other. We then added the two parts of the head joint. The holes were aligned concentrically and the bottom face was mated coincident to the head joint. Then the head joint was locked parallel to the right plane. The next part was the second part of the head joint, which was attached using two coincident mates on the edges. The connector piece was added next, using the same series of mates as before, a coincident mate between the faces, a concentric mate between the holes, and a parallel mate with a plane of the assembly. Then these steps were repeated with the back panel as well. Then we began adding the fasteners using the SolidWorks toolbox. We added these M4 countersunk screws and M4 hex nuts. We also added these M6 bolts. These M6 nuts are supposed to be M6 wing nuts, but the SolidWorks toolbox does not offer those, which is why they are represented with hex nuts. These mates were automatically generated. We then fully defined the assembly by making the planes of the fasteners parallel to the planes of the assembly. Afterwards, we added the light model to the back panel using two coincident mates with the guidelines from before. Finally, we added the last remaining parts. The top head strap was aligned to the head mount front piece using these mates and the guideline. The remaining straps and head mount pieces were all attached using coincident relations on the edges. While making this assembly, we had to return and edit some of our parts, specifically the parts that had teeth on them. Any parts previously described as having an offset plane had the offset changed from 11.5 degrees to 11.25 degrees. We also had to tap M6 holes on the front parts because the original parts used regular cut extrudes for the holes, which made the bolts not fit. One final thing we did was rotate the parts in their own files because the original orientations were hard to make engineering drawings for. Lastly, this assembly is not accurate to the real-life version because it does not contain springs. Our final product has compression springs loaded into any place held together by M6 bolts. However, this was not practical to model in SolidWorks, so we left it out.